I'm Obi. That's Ed. And we are Drinking from the Garden Host, your favorite podcast. Hope you're all doing good out there. You can get us wherever you get your podcast. Remember to like us, rate us, give us feedback, personally, if you know us, however you can. We'd love to hear from it. Makes its way into these episodes a lot. Ed, how are you?
Doing well. Middle of January, though. It's cold, no snow. It's kind of that miserable time of year, but we're doing all right.
We are doing okay. And I think this episode, I'm very excited to say, it's going to be a real throwback to what we thought the show was going to be about when we started it, which is, just a couple of cranky old men talking about the way things used to be and what we could do and the kids these days don't do. And this episode was inspired by my wife. He and I were watching Mythbusters, which probably in and of itself is a thing that, back from the old days at this point. And we were watching reruns, and they were doing some shenanigans where they were trying to hold on to a car while it was driving around the parking lot. They'd set up this rig, and of course, every time they did it, they got thrown off and whatever. My wife's like, "Oh yeah, when I was a kid, we used to do car surfing. We used to stand on the roofs of cars and drive through the parking lot." And my wife's very, very a rule-abiding type of person who's not known for her risk-taking. So in and of itself, that's shocking. But there are a lot of things we did that were stupid as children that surprises me that we're still alive. And then there are things that we are so fearful our kids are going to do that we didn't have the chance to do it. So Ed, when I bring up car surfing, what comes to your mind as just stupid things that we're lucky to be alive?
Well, I mean, I think Obi, I never car surfed. I never would go that. I don't know. Maybe I had, we know where your wife grew up, down in the Pine Barrens of South Jersey. There's a lot of open space. I guess maybe it was safer, but
probably less other cars on the road, right?
Probably, and maybe less chance of a cop catching you as well. But so I never did that. I think probably the craziest thing I ever did, driving, that. If my daughter listens to this podcast, thank God she's already afraid of driving. I don't think she'd ever do this, but. It was snowing out. First of all, the fact that I even was out driving in the snow when I was a teenager just blows my mind because I don't think I'd let my girls out driving in the snow. But the fact is I was out in the snow, Dodge Aries K, 1982, and I was in a parking lot and, it was wide open. And I'm like, let's let it rip. So I pegged it and then I, pulled the emergency brake, jammed the wheel to the side. And I just, it wasn't even a donut, but I kind of glided in a, doing a circle as I was gliding, in a straight line, but I was spinning around.
Yep.
And then it was really cool. And then I realized, holy shit, this parking lot isn't that large. How am I going to stop this goddamn thing? Because if I don't, that's going to be a lot of explaining to do as I'm wrapped around the snowplow that's parked in the corner of the parking lot. But luckily I came to a stop, but, that was probably the craziest thing I ever did. Here's the crazy thing. I was by myself. It wasn't even like I was showing off for a girl or me and a buddy were like, oh, look what I can do. It was nothing. It was just, I'm like, shit, I want to do this. So what does it feel like? So that was probably the craziest thing I did.
So after I knew what episode we were doing, and I mean, honestly, after you texted me to tell me you were going to be 15 minutes late. So 45 minutes ago, if that, a friend of mine texts me. He's maybe 10 years younger than me, maybe a little more. His kid is getting his first iPhone. So I think the kid's going to be turning 13. So
about right.
About right. Yeah. Hey, reaches out to me and another older dude. What did you guys do, with giving your kids phones? How do you protect them or anything? And so I told him what my rule was, and the other guy says, "Yeah, that's a good one." But we do that too. But I don't know what else to do. And I'm like, "Yeah, these kids are sneaky now, right? I'm decent in tech. I'm not great. I'm decent. My son Alex is ridiculous. He breaks into all of our phones. There's no setting up the phone so he can't do something on it because I'm going to need to unlock it so he can do whatever he needs to do on my. It's not even worth it." Kid literally this week put together a new PS2. Why do you want a PlayStation 2? I don't know, but he put one together. So I'm no use there, but I respond to him is, it's not like these kids are doing crazy things. It's not like when I would be out all day playing Manhunt and then be like, oh, it's time to go home. Now I was playing Manhunt, so I was wearing dark clothing. I'm on my bicycle that has no light. I'm not wearing a helmet because it's the 80s. And I'm literally driving back and forth across the road looking for every jump off a sidewalk I know, some of which, in hindsight, like I know when I land that jump, I got to make a quick turn because there's another like dip, and I can't see any of that. Like, that's not even a car, and that was asinine. And we're like, oh no, our kids on the internet, they're going to get talked to funny.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, now you're jogging. So the dumbest thing I did with a car was like that little surfing with the snow. But my bike, I did far dumber stuff. Like I can think of three things I did stupid. One I was told not to do, but the two others I was never told not to do. I just did it, and it was stupid. So we'll start with, I don't know. We'll end with the one I was told not to do, and that was the one that actually probably almost killed me. The others could have killed me, but this one really almost killed me, and I'll tell you why in a second. So, one is I used to ride my bike everywhere, like every kid did, right? And that meant even when I was in high school and I was old enough to drive, I was going to a party, so I'm like, well, I'm not going to drive drunk because that's illegal. And at that time in the 80s, like you couldn't drive drunk, like it was all over the place. Like you'd be the biggest dumbass if you did it, right? So not that you wouldn't be a dumbass today, but that's when it was starting to become you're a dumbass. So what do I do? I'm like, I'm going to ride my bike to the party. So me and my buddies, we would ride our bike, and I'm not talking about to like around a block, like a mile and a half. I would ride my bike. I would drink, and I would get on my bike and ride home. And there's no way I was sober to ride home, right? And there was cars on the road. And by the way, my freaking curfew was like a midnight, so it's not like there was cars on the road, and I'm riding my bike, no helmets, right? No, because no way. So I think that was probably a dumb thing I did. Another dumb thing I did is I was on a bike, and I had this like empty lot across the street from my house, and my neighbor's house had a little bit of a hill, so I went up on the hill on my bike, and my goal was I was going to ride down the hill, across the street, and into the field, just for the hell of it, because I'm crazy. Like high grass, I don't know what's there. So for whatever reason, I put a motorcycle helmet on, which I didn't normally, but I put it on. I go down the hill, I go across the street, into the tall grass, and wouldn't you know, there was a log there. I freaking stopped so quick, went head over heels, hit my head right on the ground, hit my head on the ground. Lived to tell the story, right? Could have died though, right? But
right.
And then the last thing I did was there was this big rope swing across this creek, and all my friends would go and they'd swing across. Sometimes you'd fall off. Funny. My mom said, "You do not do that. You're going to get hurt. Don't do it." So of course, I watch. I can't do it. My mommy says I can't do it. Everyone's going. Everyone's having a good time. The girls are there. Oh, and I'm like the only dork not doing it right. So all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm going. So I go. Of course, not thinking this whole thing out. I go. I fall off. I'm in the water now. So I don't even know how I'm going to explain the fact that I'm soaking wet. But that it gets worse. As we're coming out of the water, there were some other people in the water. Coming out of the water, my one buddy. And this rope was a big rope, like for cruise ships. It was a big, thick one, with a big, thick knot on it, right? Heavy. So my buddy's in front of me. He's got it over his shoulder, and he's climbing up. So I'm behind him. The rope is over his shoulder onto his chest, right? As he's climbing up the bank, right? Well, as he's climbing up the bank, the rope gets shorter, obviously, right? The rope is only a certain length. So it comes off of his chest, up and over his shoulder, and is released right into me standing there on the side of the bank of this creek, and hit the knot hits me right in the face. Boom. I didn't even have a chance to put my hands up. Boom. Knocks me out cold, back into the creek. I'm now in the creek, unconscious. My friends, luckily, drag me out of the creek. I come to as I'm getting dragged out of the creek. I get out of the creek, and all I can think of is, holy shit, now I've done it. Like, I don't even know how to explain the fact that I was wet. Now I don't even know where the hell I am. So I try to ride my bike home because I had a bike again. I couldn't even. I couldn't even hit the pedals. I was so like screwed up. I ended up getting concussed from that. And I get home, and my buddy, he rides me home at least, right? I get home, and my mom is there, and my buddy just goes, "See you later, Mrs. Phillip," and just takes off. Doesn't even say what happened. Just takes off. And my mom's like, you did the rope swing," and I'm like, and then she's like, "We gotta go to the hospital." So could have killed me.
She pegged it though immediately. Immediately.
Well, she probably also knew what type of kid I was and said, "Don't do it." Knew I was going there, and probably deep down knew I was going to do it.
Okay. All right. Oh, well, she knew where you were at. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, but knew where you were at back in the day. Was she didn't really know where I was at. She knew of this rope swing. I'm not sure she knew where the rope swing was. She just knew of this mythical rope swing around a creek.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. All right.
I mean, she knew where it was afterwards. I showed her.
This is where I died. Almost
That's
died,
where it was.
Oh, yeah.
Almost died. Floating like unconscious in a creek.
He's like, don't take
Not
Eric.
a good look. But I don't think my kids would ever do any of those three things I just talked about.
My kid, I think my kids would do the rope swing. I don't think they would do the riding of the bicycle drunk because neither of them are good enough bike riders. The other thing, like my kids, yeah, they ride their bikes when they got to, but they didn't start riding super young. They both started riding like at 13 or 14. So riding wasn't the whole thing of them. So like as soon as they got their licenses, there was no like, let's just ride for the heck of it amongst their groups of friends. It was like we're riding because we don't have cars, and then we had cars.
Yeah, and we were experts because we learned when we were young, and we would be jumping off curbs, jumping onto curbs. We would be setting up logs with pieces of plywood in the street to jump off of, and we would jump over a matchbox. Like we would do all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely. Like the amount of times I fell on a bike ramp are numerous and too many to recount even, and they're not even funny stories because you just got up and you did it again. That's what we did, right? We set up the ramp, go over the ramp, think you're going to do something cool, you crash, you get up, you try again.
Yeah. So another thing I did that I don't think my kids would do, and I could be wrong on this, is you'd always push the envelope. First of all, I don't think this is even possible today because when we grew up, again, there was rear-wheel drive cars. And I know there's, muscle cars now, but most cars are either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, right? But I had this big, my parents had this car. They let me drive. It was big Chrysler Cordoba with big metal bumpers on it. And that thing, it was light in the back. If it was wet out, you would fishtail, right? But if there's a little snow, forget about it. And again, why I would drive in these conditions in this car, my parents would let me do it. I mean, I can drive really well in the snow now. I guess that's why. But anyway, I was coming, and again, so you're young and dumb. You go a little faster than you should because when you do fishtail, that was a pretty cool feeling. Like, wow, like you learn how to, steer into the skid and you save it, and then you do it again because you want to save that one. And so it's kind of cool to fishtail down a road with other cars on it, right? Even though, like, I would never think of doing that today, and I would never want my kids doing it. So anyway, was doing that. I was coming around a corner, fishtailing around a corner, and I lost it, right? And I freaking go off the road into this yard of this house, and they had like this little tree that was maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 inches wide, a little, probably a sapling. I freaking hit a big metal bumper. I hit that tree, leaves everywhere on my car, like that. I just remember like instant leaves on the windshield, and I stop, and I turn on the wipers. Gone are the leaves and gone is the tree. I get out of the car. I'm in the front yard of this house with the tree snapped under the bumper. I'm like, holy shit. If you get in a car accident, you're supposed to tell people. Like, I read property damage. Like, you keep leaving the scene of property damage, you go to jail. I'm like, oh my God. So now I got to go I got to go knock on this door and tell them. What do you tell them? Like, I just ran your tree over? Like, so anyway, I'm thinking as I'm knocking on the door, what do I tell you? So the young lady answers the door with her baby. And I'm like, I'm sorry, ma'am. I just point. My car's still in her front yard. I just point. I go, I just took your tree out. She goes, oh my God. Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm really sorry I took your tree out. I'll buy you a new one. She says to me, don't worry about it. My husband was going to get rid of those trees anyway. There's 3 of them. I said, oh, Thank you so much. He says, it's okay. So I got in my car, backed out, took off. I lived in that neighborhood. My parents still live in that neighborhood. That husband must have been so pissed because he never got rid of those other 2 trees.
Never.
That woman let me off. That woman felt bad for me and let me off the hook.
My husband's getting rid of those 2 trees. No, he wasn't. No, no,
No, he
no.
wasn't. I got rid of the third one for him, but he was not getting rid of those trees. They were just planted. It's like 3 inches wide.
Well, maybe he wanted to get rid of them, but after one was gone, that's all he needed. He's like, oh, you know what? One's enough.
I don't know. But I was on this woman's front yard. Thank God the guy did. I would have died if the guy answered the door. Thank God.
Or, Ed, he was going to get rid of 3 trees. He didn't have a chainsaw, and that's why he never got rid of them. And then they just got too big for him to get rid of. And he's like, well, I mean, these are things that we as men around the house know. Like, get rid of that tree.
He might have also figured that I live local and I'll be by again.
Yeah, hey, maybe that same idiot will get rid of the other two. That family's running joke is that idiot's going to come by and take out these other 2 trees for us.
I'll tell you something else about growing up, though, in those situations. So, again, I was in that car alone that time, too, being a jerk off, fishtailing and everything. But there was this other time, and it's really weird when you're in a car with a buddy and he crashes his car on how you feel about it. Like, when you're driving, you're like, oh, shit, the world's going to end, right? But I was in a car one time with my buddy, and basically around the same corner, again, wet, going too fast, and it's like you gotta lock it up. Well, because we're going that fast, you got to lock it up to make a left because it was a dead end, right? So it was like a 90-degree left-hand turn. And there was off to the right, it was kind of like a hill, so there was a guardrail there. And so the same thing, he's going a little too fast. He slams on the brakes to make the left, end up locking him up. No anti-lock brakes, right? So you lock them up. That was the other thing. We used to lock up our brakes all the time. Like driving was difficult back in the day.
Yeah. Forget lane assist. Our brakes locked.
So anyway, he locks up his brakes and poof, we slide right into the guardrail and we hit the guardrail and slide like 10 feet. Like, so it wasn't even like a dent. It was like a scratch all the way down the side of his car. And of course, I was in the passenger seat, so I couldn't get out because I was trapped in with this guardrail. But he gets out, he looks at it, he's like, oh my God, my dad's going to kill me. And I just remember thinking to myself, yeah, that sucks for you, dude. Like, it wasn't my problem, not my car, man.
I'm okay. We're good. I'm okay. Yeah. We're good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how buddies are, right? We're buddies, but that's your problem, dude. Deal with it.
Let me drop you off.
Just like my buddy who dropped me off with a concussion. That was my problem, man. It wasn't his.
Exactly. I was going to say, is this the same buddy?
No, different buddy. Different. No, this wasn't even No, it was a different buddy. I will tell you, though, the buddy who dropped me off with the concussion was in the car when I crashed once. I was backing out of my driveway. I probably told this story before. I was backing out of my driveway, and I wasn't paying attention. This might be the first time I admitted that. But I wasn't paying attention, and I hit the Chrysler Cordova with the car I was backing out, right? So I hit a car in my driveway. I backed my mom's car into my dad's car. It's not good. But my buddy's in the car, and I'm taking him to his house. That's why I'm leaving. It was snowing out. And he basically had the same attitude. He's like, oh, man, that's going to suck when you get home. He's like, get me home now, though. Like, so I go drop him off. The whole time I'm dropping him off and coming back, like, he don't give a shit. He's going home. I'm thinking about how the hell am I going to tell this to my parents that I just backed one car into the other car?
He was your mom's favorite because every time he was around, you did do stupid shit.
I don't know if he was. Yeah, that's funny to see if he'd be my mom's favorite. But yeah, but it's so funny. Like, he didn't give a shit. I'm driving him to his house, and I'm like, I'm going to get killed. Like, I just backed my mom's car into my dad's car. My dad is going to shit. And he didn't care at all.
No, well, if you need a place to stay, I guess you can come to my house. But
you know, that's a difference. That's a difference between boys and girls. Because I can tell you right now, a girl would have cared about that. A girl would be like, I'm so sorry. How can I help you? What are we going to do? Guys, we're just like, dude, that sucks for you.
Good luck on your many adventures, Ed, with your parents. I've got things to do with my parents that you don't want to be involved in either. So we're good.
Yeah. So you know what I did? I get back, pull into the driveway. I go down to where I backed out with clean tire marks over the snow. I kick them around to make it look like I lost control backing out. I noticed there was a piece of molding from my mom's car that was now on the driveway. It had fallen off the car. It was on the ground. So I pick it up and I went and knocked on the front door. Now I have a key to the house. I could have just walked in, but I knocked on the door, and my dad comes and answers the door, and I didn't know what to say, so I just handed him the piece of plastic, and I said, "This fell off Mom's car."
The slipped right
and
off.
He says, "How the hell does it fall off? It just doesn't fall off. Just imagine if your son says that to you. It just doesn't fall off." So then I actually had to say, "Well, I was backing out and it's snowing and I skidded." I think he thought I was full of shit, but whatever.
Well, he knew you were full of shit. Just like, I mean, this is the one thing about sons. Like when Sammy got in his first car accident as a driver, so far his only as far as I know, knocking wood, he called me up and he's like, and the moment he said, "Hey, Dad,"
You knew.
I knew. I was like, "How bad's my car?" He's like, I think I said, "You sound okay. How bad's my car?" And he's like, "How do you know?" It's like, "I know." He's like, "Oh, the car's fine. I'm fine. Cops aren't even taking our names. His car." I'm like, "Okay, great." He brings the car home, and the entire front fender's in like an inch. Like, how? I didn't see anything. You don't. Let me show you what the car looks like. I pull it out. I'm like, "Is that what it looked like?" It's,
Now, did he get the information? Like, was it his fault?
oh yeah,
Or
he rear-ended some kid in the rain. I will say this. I do not know what Sam's high school parking lot is like. I, as a very experienced driver, anytime I have to drop my kids off at the high school, am afraid for my life. It
Oh,
is a
I
horrible
was
situation, and it's high school drivers and adults who want to get to work. It is, oh,
I was at the high school today picking up, and it's a madhouse. I actually don't understand. I mean, because again, we know that my daughter doesn't have her license yet, so I'm at the high school a lot picking her up. I don't know why. I haven't, and I'm gonna knock on a lot of wood because it'll probably be me, but I haven't seen an accident yet, and I don't know how. You have all these 16 and 17-year-olds who don't
oh,
know how to drive, just want to get the hell out of school, and aren't looking and taking off. And I don't know how they don't hit each other
oh, they do.
or me.
They do. They hit each other all the time.
And they're just not calling the cops. They're just like, "Oh, my bad."
Yeah. They're like, "My junker, your junker." All right. I mean, because they are just like bonks, bonk.
You know what is funny about that, Obi? I noticed my daughter's one friend has a car, and it's kind of a beat up Pontiac Grand Am. And every time I see it, I notice there's like more duct tape on the fender. Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're right. She hits a lot of stuff, I think. I also noticed the other day that her door makes noises now when she opens it.
Yeah.
Like as if it's being pinched from a dent or something.
Right. From when
Like, yeah, I remember her car door used to not make noises. Now it's making noises, and there's more tape. So yeah, maybe they just don't call the cops, and that's why you don't know there's an accident. They just keep going.
Yeah. Or the cops are there and they just come over and they go. There's there's an on-campus cop who just shows up. They don't have to get everything.
Yeah, well, like I said, I haven't witnessed any accident investigations going on in the high school parking lot, but there's gotta be, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, my son was in one as a driver. He was in one as a passenger when his best friend got in an accident. That guy's father must have apologized to me every day for a month. I was like, I'm like, for what? For what? What do you apologize? Hey, you weren't driving. You weren't even there. You were at home like I was at home, or at work like I was at work. It's okay, Lee. We're cool. And yes, your son can continue to pick up my son and take him to school because that parking lot is a madhouse, like you said.
Yeah.
16, 17-year-old first-time drivers. They haven't had their licenses even a year, and there's just no rules. No rules.
Well, plus you want them to come pick your kid up because that means you don't have to bring your kid.
Yeah. That is an added benefit.
So you're gonna look the other way. But I still think kids take less chances today for whatever reason. I don't know what that is. I'd love to get feedback on that from people listening. Do they think kids take more chances or less chances? Now they may take more chances with drugs or other things like that. I don't know, but I just don't think on like the danger factor they're really taking the risks, like the physical danger parts.
I think that kids today take a much bigger risk in things that we wouldn't even have thought about, specifically our privacy. Like I think that's where the kids are less are just like, yeah, whatever. Like I'll put everything about me out there everywhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, think about that. I mean, you look at these people on Instagram that have thousands and thousands of followers and they're 17 years old and they're
Yeah.
posting everything they do everywhere they go in their underwear and their, it's like, you realize who's like liking that stuff and looking at
Yeah.
that stuff?
There are some lecherous mofos out there tracking you right now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, yes. And so I think that that's more where some of their, because they don't do the things we do because we're like, don't do these things. We know that. We know to tell you, don't do these things because we did these things. And, my finger used to be straight, but now it's,
Yeah,
and
no,
this,
but I agree, Obi. But our parents told us not to do shit that they knew that they did, right? Like, it's just, I guess things have changed. Like, cars were cars back then. Now they're not. Like, they're different.
yeah.
Phones, social
Well,
media. Like, there's more stuff to get into today that we didn't do.
although I do know plenty of people who did eventually get DWIs, I also think that our generation, at the time when we first got our driver's licenses, were very much like we'd underage drink, but we weren't going to drive. Like that, right? That like, we'd underage, but nope, we're not going to drive. And I think it's some of my friends got older and then became legal and coming up from a bar, different story. But I think like just even 5 or 10 years before us, you drove whoever it didn't matter. You all drove to the forest, drank in the woods, and so some things we didn't do, and some other things we did do, like ride without helmets off of ramps that were not even that were that were poorly built. I mean, you and I both did not graduate as engineers, and we both built ramps. I mean, I think that's all you need to know. Like,
Well, yeah. And I think I used to, I had this, I say big hill, but it's a pretty big hill, like next to my house, like two houses down. We used to go up to the top of that hill, not on our, well, of course we'd fly down on our bikes, but we would go up to the top of the hill with our skateboards and not necessarily because I wasn't a good enough skateboarder to ride it down on my, standing on my feet, but I would sit my ass down on that skateboard with my feet in the front and I would go down that hill on a skateboard. Cars couldn't see. I'm freaking sitting on the ground.
we had a hill like that too, and it actually was. My house is almost on the corner. There was a gradual hill to my house, and then you made a left-hand turn, and then it just skyrocketed down. And we built a soapbox car, for lack of a better word. We literally took a baby carriage and added some steering to it. And the brakes were not something we thought about because on a bike you stop in time, but on this thing you came down, you went, and if you at the end of the cul-de-sac there was the guy's house with the fence. That was it. Like you, boom. Okay. Uh, better not do that anymore. But yeah, we were dumb. Also,
yeah, go ahead.
there was one other thing I did. We built a ramp on a friend's. It was snowing, so the kids' parents weren't there. They hadn't shoveled the driveway yet. It came down. We built a nice pack on, jumped. Thing is, what we did is we started like the guy would start pushing you, giving you a running push to see how far we could get in the sled. What we couldn't see was the cars coming down the hill that we were jumping, and one of us jumped, and the car went not to hit us. So that was pretty close to death because you just couldn't see the car coming from the angle we were on, and that was good.
Yeah, I think maybe it's because we were latchkey kids. Our parents weren't around, and we weren't posting what we were doing on social media. And we weren't telling them that we were doing that shit because we knew they would tell us not to do it. So
yeah.
Maybe that's why our kids don't do that stuff today because they're helicopter parents and they aren't free to do that stuff on their own. They never learn the social skills to just go out and do crazy shit. They got to set up a play date to do it.
And look, whether my kids have a rule. That was the rule that I told my guy when he bought the phone. I own your phone. I know where the phone is at all times. So your location sensor has to be on. So I know where you are now. For my older son, it's in places that I know are obviously bars based on the name. But he's like, whatever, you're paying for my phone bill, sure. You can know I'm at a bar. I don't care. I'm 21. I'm at a bar. Deal with it.
Yeah. So, Obi, there's one other thing that I did growing up that I think could have gotten me killed, especially in today's day and age. And it's pretty innocuous, but I could have died this day. Me and my buddy were throwing snowballs at cars as they drove by my house, right? And this one car goes by. I freaking nailed it, and it stops. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. So we just book it into my backyard. We get in my backyard. We're hiding back there. This freaking guy chased us into my backyard. Big guy, too, right? And he's back, and he's all of a sudden, he's like nose to nose with us, and we're looking up at him. And I'm like, oh, my God, we're going to get killed. He's going to kick our ass. And he just says, you guys can't be throwing snowballs. I used to do that. But nothing good comes from throwing snowballs at cars. You could have hurt me. You could kill somebody. And then you got to live with that for the rest of your life. So don't throw snowballs. And then he went back to his car. Well, and me and my buddy looked at each other and go, yeah, we're not going to throw snowballs anymore.
Yeah. Or the guy doesn't just yell at me and he breaks my neck. So there's that.
Yeah, I think we got off lucky that he just lectured me.
Right.
He was a big dude, and I think he could have killed us.
He scared you straight.
And no one was home, so he probably could have taken us in his car, and nobody ever would have found us either after he killed us. So.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, we used to have rock fights, not just snowball fights.
Oh, yeah, I had a rock fight.
Yeah, rock fights.
The best thing about rock fights is how fun they are because you can't hit the broadside of a barn, but when you accidentally do hit your buddy, and you split his forehead open,
and
all the fun ends.
And
all the fun ends.
You take him to his mother and you go, bye, Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, so I was the one that threw the rock. I wasn't the one that got hit, and my brother. This was a classic case of your buddy's younger brother's hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
And the younger brother gets his forehead split open. So we had to go to my house. My mom had to clean him up first, and then my buddy had to take his kid brother back up to his house, and then they had to go to the hospital to get stitches. And I see him the next day at school. He's got like 3 stitches down the middle of his forehead. Like, dude, he got out of the way.
Yeah, man.
I don't know what you want me to tell you. We were throwing rocks at each other. Somebody's gonna get hit.
Eventually, someone gets hit with a rock and it hurts.
I know, but how much fun is a rock fight? Like, it's a crazy thing. Like, you're throwing rocks at each other.
Yeah, like cavemen. Like this is real war. This is how war started. Literally rocks at each other. It's like, Alex, I got mine, you got yours. First arms race, right there.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that boys do that shit.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's charming. And the charm is that we suck. I'm Obi. That said, hope you enjoyed this episode of Drinking from the Garden Hose. We'll see you next week.